Hi, today I have another baking video for you, and because it's Easter, I thought I would show you these traditional hot cross buns. I've made these a couple of times before, but this was my first time with this recipe and I think it's my new favorite. They're definitely not as hard as they seem at first, so let's get started. I've put the recipe in the description below, so if you want to go and follow along, you can get all of the measurements and ingredients there. We have to start by warming up some milk, and we want to be careful that we don't warm it too hot, but we want it hot enough so that it feels like a really nice, comfortable bath. This shouldn't take too long. I think it took me about like 8 minutes. I'm not really sure, I didn't time it, but make sure you stir it the entire time. That's very important. If you don't stir milk the whole time that you're heating it, it can froth up and like come over the saucepan and it makes a huge mess. So while the milk is hot, we're gonna add the yeast and the sugar and then stir it really well until all of the yeast is dissolved. I still had a few yeast clumps in mine, but they were very, very small, and I did have to stir this for quite a long time to get it pretty smooth. You have to let the yeast sit for a little while, and it's gonna do some kind of crazy stuff. It's gonna like bubble up and have some sort of reaction, and that's what we want. We want the yeast to activate before we add it to all the other ingredients. All of the dry ingredients are gonna go into a really big bowl, and make sure you pick a big bowl for this. Because we're using yeast, that means our dough is going to rise and it's gonna get bigger. So make sure your bowl is at least like twice as big as your ingredients. Once you have your dry ingredients in, you need to make a little hole in the middle, and then you're going to pour all of the wet ingredients in. So we have some melted butter and some eggs. Start off mixing with a spoon, and then you're going to transfer over to your hands, and it can get pretty sticky here. My dough wasn't extra sticky at this stage, so I don't know what yours will be like. I think maybe I put a little too much flour in, but they still came out really good. So once you have got your dough coming together, you're gonna turn it out onto a floured surface and you're gonna knead it. And if you've never kneaded dough before, you're gonna be in for a surprise. I know it looks really easy, but this is actually a very hard physical workout. If you're not like very tired by the end of it, you haven't done it well enough, and you need to be doing it until your arms are tired and you're sweaty. I know, it's gross. Baking always looks so like calm and soothing, but then you actually do it and it's like stress and pain. Before you start kneading your dough, it's a good time to turn on your oven, so then you can turn it off once you finish kneading, and then it's nice and warm and you can put the dough in there to rise. We want the dough to double in size, and don't be scared to like leave it over the time that's in the recipe. I left mine for a little bit longer and it worked out really good. Next step, we need to punch the dough down, and then we're going to separate it into 12 little parts. I did this by splitting it first into 4 and then splitting each of those 4 into 3, and it took me an embarrassingly long amount of time to figure out the math involved here, so I cut that out for you. You're welcome. Now we're going to leave it to double again. This one takes about 30 minutes, and while we're waiting, it's time to make the paste for the cross on the top. Here's my mistake. I guess it wouldn't be a baking video for me without one mistake. I followed the recipe exactly for the cross stuff, and it did not work out. You'll see what it looked like in a minute. Here are the buns after they've risen. They've doubled in size. There's one little tiny one at the front. Oh, there's my second mistake. I cut that hole way, way too big. You need to cut a small hole for this thing. As you can see, the dough that's supposed to make the crosses on the top is completely clogged, backed up, blocked. Anyway, yeah, I tried to work with this. I even tried putting it in another bag and making a smaller hole, and no, that didn't fix it. I had to start again. And this time I just decided to wing it. So I went with 1 heaped tablespoon of flour, 1 heaped tablespoon of icing sugar, and then a splash of water. So if you're gonna do this, I recommend you double that. So that's 2 tablespoons of flour and 2 tablespoons of icing sugar, and then enough water to make it into this kind of like liquidy paste. It's like really like a runny oatmeal. If you ever had one of those baby dolls back in the 90s, the baby Bjorns, baby born. I don't remember what they were called, but they came with this baby food, and this is the exact consistency. I couldn't stop thinking about it. But as you see, I kind of ran out of it halfway through here, so not all of my buns have crosses, but that's okay. They're still really tasty, and they still taste exactly the same, honestly. Now they're gonna go into the oven until they're golden brown. And the very last thing we have to do is make the glaze to put on top of them as soon as they come out of the oven. I believe it's 2 tablespoons of icing sugar to 1 tablespoon of boiling water, so when you have about 5 minutes left on your oven timer, boil your water so that this is ready as soon as they come out. You want to put it on when they're hot. And don't be afraid if you accidentally put a little too much water in. I definitely did, and it still worked out, so they still look nice and shiny, and they're still kind of like sticky on top. And I just think they look so much better with the glaze on. I remember the first time I did this, I never put the glaze on, and I kind of regret it now, but I mean, that was a long time ago. Don't they look so much better? They look like delicious with the glaze on. They're like Instagram worthy, if that's your thing. You want to cool them on a wire rack, and then you're going to store them in an airtight container. I just use a Ziploc freezer bag. Mine are in the fridge, but I don't think they have to be. It's up to you. These are best served hot with butter or some margarine. If they've cooled down, you can put them in the microwave for about 20 seconds and then they'll be nice and warm again. So let me know what you think in the comments, especially if you try it out. Let me know how it goes for you, and let me know if you have any Easter baking traditions in your house. Like, do you kind of make something with chocolate, or do you do something with eggs, or do you make hot cross buns? Let me know. And thank you so much for clicking on me today. There are so many things here on YouTube that you could have clicked on, but you chose me, and that makes me super happy. I'll see you real soon. Goodbye.